In Germany, everything revolves around protection. The law and the legal system is structured to protect as many people as possible. Even in the Middle Ages, the principle was that the sovereigns protect their people. For this, the people pay taxes and duties. It starts with Article 1 of the Basic Law. Human dignity is inviolable. To respect and to protect it is the duty of all state authority. The state must ensure that every person can live in dignity. Here all people are meant, not only the inhabitants, but also the visitors. An example of this is freedom of expression or opinion. The Basic Law protects this, but in doing so does not allow people to offend others by expressing their opinions. Next to all people, the next smallest group is that of consumers. Consumers are protected that, for example, the offered goods must be free of defects. Otherwise, the customer can decide whether he wants a repair, an exchange, or money back. Most of the time, customers would even have more rights if no separate contract is signed than if a separate contract is signed about it. In fact, most contracts are written in the sense of the seller. But even here, the contract must not violate applicable law and disadvantage the customer. For example, an exchange of warranty of a dealer cannot be excluded in general. Also, the dealer is responsible for the correction of the goods and cannot refer the customer to the manufacturer. Whenever a new product is launched on the market, the manufacturer must prove that the product is not harmful. Thus, the consumer can be sure that he is not buying something dangerous. This is true throughout the EU, while there are other countries where any product is allowed on the market until it has been proven to be harmful. Another group is the population and the voters of the country. They have rights, such as the right to vote, which cannot be lost permanently. Elections must be free, equal, and secret. If an election does not comply with these rules, it must be repeated, as was recently the case with election for the Senate in the state of Berlin. If law applies to citizens, they can sue for it. A few years ago, for example, a complaint was filed in the Federal Constitutional Court that the laws on the climate protection were insufficient and placed too heavy a burden on future generations. The Federal Constitutional Court agreed, and the German government had to amend its law. Another large group of people are employees. They are also protected, whether by the Working Hours Act, which specifies when and how long work may be done or how many breaks must be taken, the Federal Vacation Act, which states how many vacation days must be given as a minimum or how high the minimum wage must be. The social insurances were created to make sure that people stay healthy, for example, through the accident insurance, that they are protected in case of illness through the health insurance, and that they still receive money in case of unemployment or after their working life. They have the right to elect a works council or to join a trade union. In this regard, of course, parents are also protected. Expectant mothers are not allowed to perform any dangerous work and are sent on paid maternity leave 6 weeks before the calculated date of delivery and for 8 weeks after the birth. Fathers and mothers have the right to parental leave, which is financially supported. Young people are also protected, of course. Compulsory education is also the right to education and social interaction. Therefore, there is no possibility to teach children at home. Children can decide from the age of 14 whether they want to take part in religious instruction and in which. Also from this age, children can decide whether they want to have certain medical examinations and treatments, such as vacations, even if parents object. Employers are also protected. They too can join together in employer representative bodies. Furthermore, they are protected from unfair competition. For example, large companies are not allowed to set prices that are disproportionately low in order to drive competitors out of business. Regulations also from the EU have aligned the framework so that all manufacturers must comply with the same minimum standards. The regulation also gives companies planning security. The companies have also joined forces in the training of workers and defined the same standards via Chamber of Agriculture, Chamber of Crafts, or Chamber of Industry and Commerce, so that employers can be sure that a hired employee with a certain training has a certain knowledge. In road transport, vehicles must be tested for roadworthiness. Drivers of motor vehicles must be able to prove that they have received appropriate training, and traffic regulations should assign a safe area for all. The regulations for food are designed to ensure that food is of good quality. The strictest regulations apply to drinking water. For other foodstuffs, the regulations start with the feed for animals or the pesticides for plants, as well as the subsequent processing and storage. However, privacy protection has also been taken into account here for points that are actually intended to ensure safety, such as the storage of electronic contact data. The protection of privacy and private data is very important. Following the example of the protection in Germany, the European Data Protection Standard was set up and then expanded. While others wonder why the Germans are so concerned about their privacy, and there is so far not even Google Street View in Germany, or many like to pay with cash, we should remember that in the Third Reich and the GDR, the secret services even spied on their own population, and anyone who made only improper comments had to expect directly with harsh consequences up to prison or even death sentence. Freedom is even protected, where some wonder if it has to be. For example, an attempt was made to ban an openly right-wing extremist party. Unlike in 1952, when a right-wing extremist party that was thus opposed to the free democratic basic order was banned and its members lost their mandates, this time no ban was issued. One of the reasons given was that the party was so small and insignificant that it had no possibility of doing anything against the rule of law. Again, it is a protection of the independence of the courts that sometimes allow or deny things that are desired by politics or society but are not necessarily in accordance or violation of the law. And to check all of that, the fourth power in the state, journalism, is also protected. From independent reporting by public media, which is financed by a general broadcasting contribution paid by all households, to newspapers and private radio and television stations. It is very difficult to get permission to wiretap journalists. This is similar to the protection of lawyers in relation to clients or doctors and their relationship with patients. Traditionally, the secrecy of confession is also protected in case of priests. The choice of a religion or not is also protected. In recent years, more and more believers are leaving the Christian churches, and although quite a large part of the holidays had a Christian background, these are valid for all, and people have free no matter whether and which religion they belong to. Thus, one may marry in church, but only the civil marriage has a binding character before the law. Marriage is also protected, and so are the partners in the marriage, so that one has mutual responsibility. If one partner in the marriage takes care of the household and children, this partner, or usually the female partner, also has a right to a corresponding share of the values that came together. But since all people are protected, partnerships between people of the same sex who cannot marry are also protected. However, not only people and the property are protected. You are not allowed to take anything from others, like shoplifting or breaking things. Also, everyone must make sure that their own things do not harm others. For example, a homeowner must have liability insurance in case the house causes damage to others, for example, due to falling snow or ice from the roof. Animals are also protected. There is, for example, the Animal Protection Dog Regulation, or generally the Animal Protection Law. For example, the conditions under which lying hens are kept have been improved. Animals must be stunned during slaughter, and as a matter of principle, no pain may be inflicted on animals. So if you are surprised that there is so much bureaucracy in Germany, that is one point from this interest of protection, that everything is regulated and there should be no possibility to get an unfair advantage, for example, by bribery. However, if someone violates the protection of others, then actions will be taken against this person. If someone shows by driving inappropriately or driving under the influence of alcohol that the person is not able to drive a car safely, the driver license will be taken away, although it's actually his possession. If a dog owner cannot handle the dog safely and the dog has possibly already bitten people, the dog will be taken away from the owner and possibly even euthanized. Also, possession is taken and a dog is killed. And of course, a criminal can also be deprived on his freedom and looked up in prison. But this does not mean that he would not be able to vote in the next election. What do you think is better, the freedom to negotiate all or the protection of framework conditions? Thank you for your attention and see you next time.